Hello, my friend, and welcome to the English Talk community. I'm so happy to have you here with me today. Whether this is your first time listening or you've been following our episodes for a while, I want you to know that you're in the right place. This podcast was created to help people just like you, people who understand English but want to feel more confident speaking it. And today, we're going to take one of the most important steps in your English journey, learning how to introduce yourself with clarity and confidence. But before we get into any phrases or techniques, I want you to take a moment and imagine something. Picture yourself walking into a room where everyone is speaking English. Maybe it's your first day at work in a new country, or the start of a course you've dreamed about for years. Maybe it's a networking event, or you've just arrived at your host family's home on your very first trip abroad. What do you say when someone turns to you, smiles, and says, "Hi, nice to meet you"? That moment, right there, is powerful. It's more than just saying your name. It's the beginning of a new connection. And that's why this episode matters. Because knowing how to introduce yourself is the first real test of speaking English in the real world. It's simple, but it's not always easy, especially if you feel nervous, shy, or unsure about your vocabulary. And that's where we come in. At the English Talk community, we don't focus on perfect grammar or complicated rules. We focus on real communication. Our goal is to help you feel comfortable using English in daily life. You'll hear real stories, relatable situations, and, most of all, practical tips that you can use right away. One thing I always say is this: you don't need perfect English to make a good impression. You need clear English. You need the courage to speak, even if your sentences aren't long or advanced. And one of the best ways to build that courage is by starting with what you already know: your name, your background, your interests. So let's go back to that moment in the room. Someone says, "Hi, I'm Sarah. What's your name?" What do you say? Do you smile nervously and just say, "I'm Ahmed"? Or do you say, "I'm Ahmed from Istanbul. I'm an engineer. I've just moved here"? Do you feel ready to, speak that way? If not, don't worry, you will. I remember speaking with a listener from Warsaw named Anna. She told me about the first time she went to an international conference in Berlin. She had practiced English for years, but when she arrived at the welcome dinner, she suddenly froze. People were introducing themselves so casually. "Hi, I'm Lucas from Amsterdam." "Hey, I'm Nina, I work in marketing." "Hi, I'm James, I teach at a university in Dublin." Anna said her heart started beating fast. When it was her turn, she just said, "I'm Anna from Poland," and then stopped. She told me she felt so embarrassed, like she had missed her chance. But later that night, in her hotel room, she opened her notebook and started writing down a few simple sentences. "I'm Anna, I'm from Warsaw, I work as a translator, I love languages." She practiced them out loud again and again, and the next morning, when she sat next to a woman from Istanbul, she smiled and said her new introduction. They ended up talking for over an hour. This is what I want for you. Not perfection, just a voice, a presence. The ability to share a little about yourself and to make a connection. Now, before we go any further, I want to remind you, your story is worth telling. You don't have to be a world traveler or have an exciting job to make a good introduction. Saying, "Hi, I'm Chen from Shanghai, I'm a student and I like cooking," is more than enough. It's honest, it's human, it invites others to respond. And that's why I love doing this podcast. Because I get to share stories of people from all around the world, people like you, who are learning to speak English in their own way, at their own pace, using words that matter to them. Let me tell you about Mateo from Buenos Aires. He wrote to me after listening to one of our older episodes. He had started working in a call center that required English, and even though his reading and writing were strong, he struggled when it came to speaking, especially introducing himself on calls. At first, he would just say, "Hello, this is Mateo." But after hearing how others introduced themselves, he began saying, "Hello, this is Mateo. I'm calling from the customer service team in Buenos Aires." It was a small change, but it made him sound more professional and confident. More importantly, it made him feel better about himself. I know you might be thinking, "But Julia, my English is not good enough yet." And I want to tell you, yes, it is. If you can understand this podcast, then you are already able to introduce yourself. You might need a little help choosing the right words or practicing your pronunciation, and that's perfectly okay. That's why we're here. Every time you introduce yourself, you're not just giving information. You're giving someone the chance to know you, to remember you, and to talk to you. That's how conversations start. That's how friendships begin. And yes, that's how opportunities grow. And remember, you don't have to say everything at once. A simple sentence like, I'm Farah, I'm from Jakarta, and I'm learning English is a great place to start. As you grow more comfortable, you can add more. What you do, what you enjoy, why you're learning. But never forget, the most important part is starting. You belong in English. This language is not just for native speakers. It's for people from Paris and Seoul, from Nairobi and Toronto, from Manila, Cairo, and São Paulo. It's for people who are learning, practicing, making mistakes, and improving, one word at a time. So take a breath. You're here now, and you're not alone. I'm with you. And so is this global community of learners. Together, we're building confidence, one sentence at a time. Let's get started. Let's talk about something that might seem simple on the surface, but is actually one of the most powerful skills you can develop in English. Introducing yourself. I know it sounds basic. Just say your name, where you're from, maybe what you do. But the truth is, this moment, the moment you introduce yourself, is the doorway to connection, to confidence, and to growth in your English journey. Think about the last time you met someone new. Maybe it was online. Maybe it was in person. How did it begin? Most likely with a simple greeting and a short introduction. That small exchange sets the tone for everything that comes after. When you introduce yourself with confidence, you don't just make a good impression. You also tell your brain, I can do this. I can communicate. I've met so many English learners from different parts of the world, and again, I hear the same thing. They want to feel more fluent. They want to be able to speak naturally without hesitation. And when I ask them, how do you usually introduce yourself? There's often a pause. Some say, I just say my name, or I get nervous and forget what to say. That's completely normal, and it's a clear sign of where to begin. Introducing yourself is the first real opportunity you get to use English in action. It's not a test. It's a chance to use words that matter to you. Your name, your city, your job, your dreams. And the more you do it, the more confident you become. It's like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. Let me tell you about Jun, a software developer from Seoul. He started learning English because he wanted to attend tech conferences in other countries. But every time he tried to speak at a meetup or networking event, he felt frozen. He said he could write long emails in English, but when someone asked, what's your name or where are you from? His mind went blank. We talked about how he could prepare just a few sentences, something simple and natural. He practiced saying, Hi, I'm Jun from Seoul. I work in software development, and I'm really interested in tech innovation. After repeating it several times at home, he used it at a meetup in Singapore. He told me later that he felt like a completely different person. Just those few words helped him feel in control, even in a new environment. That's what I mean when I say introductions are more than just information. They are confidence builders. They help you focus on your pronunciation, your tone, your rhythm. They're also a great way to listen to how others respond. When someone says, nice to meet you, or where in Seoul, you're already in a conversation. That's how it begins. Introducing yourself is also something that happens in every area of life. It's not only for social situations. Think about job interviews. The very first question is often, can you tell me a bit about yourself? And that question is actually a gift. It gives you a chance to lead with your strengths. If you've practiced introducing yourself, you'll feel more ready. You won't panic. You'll say something like, sure, I'm Aisha. I'm originally from Nairobi, and I've been working in finance for 5 years. I'm passionate about helping people understand money in a simple way. Now think about travel. You're checking into a hotel or meeting a guide for a city tour. That first introduction helps people know who you are. Hi, I'm Aisha. I have a reservation for tonight. Simple, right? But if you're not used to saying your name or country out loud in English, it can feel intimidating. Practicing your introduction helps you stay calm and clear in these moments. And then there's studying abroad. I remember getting a message from Victor, a student from Prague. He told me about his first day of university in Toronto. Everyone had to introduce themselves in front of the class. He said he felt his hands shaking as he stood up. But he had prepared. He said, "Hi, I'm Victor. I'm from the Czech Republic. I'm studying environmental science, and I'm excited to be here." It wasn't perfect. He made a small mistake. But the class smiled. And someone came up to him after and said, "Hey, I'm also in environmental science. Want to grab coffee?" That small introduction opened a door, not just to a class, but to a friendship. When we practice introducing ourselves, we're practicing real English. We're building the habit of speaking. We're preparing for situations that really happen. And we're learning to breathe, to speak slowly, to find the words that feel natural to us. You don't have to sound like a native speaker. You just have to sound like yourself, clearly and with intention. And there's something else I want to share. When you introduce yourself with care, people listen differently. You show that you're present. You show that you're willing to connect. And that connection can lead to so many things: a new job, a deeper conversation, a chance to practice more English. I once met someone named Carlos from Madrid who had never introduced himself in English outside of class. He had studied for years but had never used English in real life. Then one day he was traveling in Tokyo and someone asked him, "Where are you from?" He said, "I'm Carlos. I'm from Spain. It's my first time in Japan." That small moment made him feel something shift inside. He had spoken English to a stranger, and it had worked. That's the magic. The more you do it, the more your brain believes you can do it again. So yes, introducing yourself is the first step. It's not just about words. It's about identity. It's about stepping forward in a new language and saying, "This is who I am." And when you can do that, when you can share your name, your story, your background, even in a few short sentences, you start to feel capable. You start to trust yourself. Every language learner I've met who became confident in English started here, with a simple, strong introduction. It doesn't matter if you live in a small town or a big city. It doesn't matter if you're learning for work, school, or travel. What matters is that you practice showing up in English. You start by saying, "Hi, I'm here, I'm learning, and I'm ready to talk." That first introduction is not the end of your English journey, but it is the beginning of something bigger. It's the moment you stop thinking of yourself as someone who is only studying English and start becoming someone who speaks it. Let me tell you the story of Anna. She's from Warsaw, Poland, and a few months ago she attended her very first international conference in Berlin. It was a big opportunity for her. She had just started working at a tech company, and her manager encouraged her to go, saying it would be a great way to learn, to network, and to grow. Anna was excited. She booked her ticket, planned her trip, and even packed her best outfit for the opening day of the conference. But there was one thing she wasn't fully prepared for: introducing herself in English. Anna had studied English in school, of course. She had passed exams. She could write emails and understand most of what she read online. But when it came to speaking, especially to strangers, especially in a new city, she didn't feel ready. On the first morning of the conference, she arrived at the venue early. The space was full of professionals from all over Europe and beyond. She heard people chatting in English everywhere around her, and even though she had practiced a few phrases at home, she suddenly felt small and nervous. When someone came up to her at the coffee table and said, "Hi, I'm Martin from Amsterdam. What's your name?" She panicked. Her brain froze. She smiled politely but only managed to say, "I'm Anna." Then silence. She didn't know what to say next. Martin tried to keep the conversation going, but Anna just nodded. After a few awkward seconds, he moved on to talk to someone else. Anna stood there, holding her coffee, her heart racing, feeling disappointed. Not with him, but with herself. Later that day, there were several sessions and panels. She took notes, listened carefully, and even asked a question during one of the talks. But during the breaks, when people gathered in small groups and introduced themselves, Anna stayed on the side. She felt isolated, not because people weren't friendly, but because she wasn't sure how to begin. That night, back at her hotel, she sat on the bed and replayed everything in her mind. She wanted to be part of the experience, not just a silent observer. She wanted to connect. So she opened her notebook and wrote down a few simple sentences. Not long speeches, not perfect grammar. Just clear, easy lines she could say without stress. She practiced out loud. Hi, I'm Anna. I'm from Warsaw. I work in IT, and this is my first international conference. She repeated them until they felt natural. Then she added a few more options like, what do you do? Or, where are you from? She practiced smiling, breathing, and speaking, slowly. She reminded herself that people weren't looking for perfect English. They were just looking for connection. The next morning, Anna walked into the venue with a new mindset. She still felt nervous, but she also felt prepared. At the breakfast table, she sat next to a woman who looked about her age. They exchanged a quick glance, and Anna took a deep breath. She said, Hi, I'm Anna. I'm from Warsaw. The woman smiled warmly and replied, Nice to meet you. I'm Layla from Istanbul. That simple start led to a real conversation. They talked about their jobs, the sessions they were planning to attend, and their favorite parts of Berlin so far. It wasn't fast, it wasn't perfect, but it was real. By the end of the day, Anna had introduced herself to 3 more people. One was a UX designer from Copenhagen, another a data analyst from Vienna, and another a software tester from Bangkok. Each time she used the same approach. Clear, simple introductions followed by one friendly question. She didn't try to impress anyone. She just showed up as herself. And it worked. People responded. They smiled, they listened, they answered. She wasn't isolated anymore. That night, Layla invited her to join a group for dinner. It was a casual meal at a Turkish restaurant nearby, and for the first time, Anna felt completely part of something. Around the table, people spoke English, with different accents and levels of fluency. Some were more advanced, some were beginners, but nobody judged anyone else. Everyone just wanted to share stories, laugh, and learn from each other. Anna told a funny story about getting lost on the Berlin metro. People laughed. She laughed. And in that moment, she realized something powerful. Her English didn't have to be perfect. It just had to be used. Anna told me later that the conference changed more than just her professional path. It changed her confidence. When she returned to Warsaw, she started joining online meetups in English. She introduced herself in every one of them. She even helped organize a local tech event where English was encouraged, not required. Now, whenever she meets someone new, she remembers that first step. Hi, I'm Anna. I'm from Warsaw. It's a small sentence, but it carries so much meaning. Stories like Anna's remind me why introductions are not just formalities. They're the first doors we open when we want to join the conversation. They're acts of courage, especially for learners. And courage doesn't mean the fear disappears. It means you go forward even when you're afraid. Anna didn't wait to become fluent. She started speaking with the English she had. And that made all the difference. So if you've ever felt like Anna did on that first day, frozen, unsure, wanting to speak but not knowing how, know that you're not alone. Know that with just a little preparation, with a few simple phrases, you can change your whole experience. Anna's story is not unique. It could be your story too. When we think about speaking English confidently, many people imagine long conversations, complex vocabulary, or perfect grammar. But in reality, some of the most powerful and important moments begin with something very simple. A short introduction, even with just a few words, can open the door to real connection. And that's something I always like to remind our listeners here at the English Talk community. You don't have to speak a lot to make a good impression. You just have to speak simply and clearly. I've met so many learners over the years who believe their English isn't good enough to talk to someone. They're afraid of making mistakes or forgetting a word. But I always say this, your goal isn't to impress, it's to connect. And connection often starts with a sentence as basic as, Hi, my name is Julia, I'm from New York. That's it. That's enough to begin. Those 2 sentences tell someone who you are and where you come from. You don't need a long explanation or perfect grammar. You just need to be present and real. I remember a young man named David who joined one of our online speaking groups. He was from Seoul, South Korea, and on his first day, he was very quiet. During the introductions, I asked everyone to say their name, where they were from, and one reason they wanted to improve their English. When it was David's turn, he hesitated, looked nervous, and said, "Hello, my name is David. From Korea. I want learn." It was short, a little broken, but completely understandable. And most importantly, it was brave. Everyone in the group smiled. A few people even clapped. One person said, "Great job, David." After that, the atmosphere changed. David relaxed. He knew he didn't have to speak perfectly to be accepted. He just had to try. In the following weeks, David kept coming to the sessions. He kept using those same simple sentences and slowly added more. "I work in IT. I like music. My favorite singer is Adele." These were not complicated phrases, but they were real, they were honest, and they helped him build confidence. This is why I believe so strongly in the power of a simple introduction. It lowers the pressure. It gives you something you can practice and use in many situations. Whether you're at an airport joining a new class, starting a job, or even talking to someone online, just saying, "Hi, I'm from city, and I'm learning English," can create a warm moment. It shows that you are open and ready to connect. I once met a woman named Sophie from Paris. She told me that when she started working in customer service at an international hotel in Dubai, she was terrified of speaking English. She could understand a lot, but speaking was another story. On her first day, she memorized one phrase. "Hi, I'm Sophie, I'm new here." That's all. But she used it again and again. Whenever she met someone, whether it was a guest, a coworker, or a manager, she used that line with a smile. "Hi, I'm Sophie, I'm new here." And that one sentence helped people welcome her, support her, and start conversations. Later, she added more like, "I work at the front desk, and how can I help you?" But it all began with that first simple sentence. That small introduction was her way into a completely new environment. She didn't need to sound like a native speaker. She just needed to speak. And by keeping it simple, she made real connections. If you're listening right now and you're someone who feels nervous when meeting people in English, I want you to know you're not alone. Many learners feel this way. But you don't need to prepare a long speech. You can focus on 3 simple ideas: your name, your city or country, and one small fact about you. For example, "Hi, my name is Ahmed. I'm from Cairo. I'm an engineer." Or, "Hi, I'm Yuki. I'm from Tokyo. I'm here to practice English." That's more than enough to start a conversation. Another important thing to remember is this: simple doesn't mean boring. It means clear. And clarity builds confidence. When your introduction is short and easy to remember, you're more likely to use it again and again. And every time you do, your confidence grows. You'll start to feel that speaking English is not about showing how much you know. It's about sharing who you are. I often suggest that learners write down their introduction and practice it out loud. You can stand in front of a mirror or record yourself on your phone. Say it 5 times every morning. Make it part of your routine. You'll be surprised how quickly it becomes automatic. And when you're in a real-life situation, at a meetup, on a trip, in a new class, it'll come naturally. One of our listeners, Carlos from Madrid, told me he used this method before his trip to Singapore. He practiced his introduction every morning for 2 weeks. "Hi, I'm Carlos. I'm from Spain. I'm traveling for work." That's all. But when he arrived and met new colleagues, those words helped him start every interaction with confidence. Later, he added questions like, "Where are you from?" or "Is this your first time here?" But the base was always that simple introduction. The truth is, we often forget how powerful it is just to say our name and where we're from. These are the things that connect us. We might speak different languages, come from different backgrounds, or have different levels of English. But when we start with something basic, we find common ground. I've seen this in every group I've led, every event I've joined, and every message I've received from our community. Simple introductions are not just a learning tool, they are real communication. And communication is what language is all about. You don't have to wait until your English is perfect. You can start today. With just a few words, you can begin conversations, build confidence, and create meaningful moments. That's the power of a simple introduction. I remember when I first met Yuki. It was during one of our community's online conversation classes. He had just joined from Tokyo, where he was studying design at a local university. The group that day was a mix of students from around the world, people from London, Istanbul, Nairobi, Kuala Lumpur, and more. Everyone was a bit nervous at first, as is often the case when learners are meeting for the first time in English. I opened the session by inviting each person to introduce themselves. Nothing complicated, just name, location, and anything else they wanted to share. When it was Yuki's turn, he unmuted his microphone, paused for a second, and said, "I'm Yuki, Japan." His voice was quiet, his eyes looking down, and he quickly muted himself again. It was a very short introduction, just 3 words, but it was enough to begin. Everyone was supportive, smiling and nodding. There was no judgment. Still, I could feel Yuki wasn't satisfied. He listened carefully to the others. One girl said, "Hi, I'm Amina from Nairobi. I'm studying medicine." Another student added, "Hello, I'm Leon. I live in Berlin and I love video games." Each person used just 1 or 2 sentences, but it gave us more of a picture of who they were. Yuki paid close attention. After class, he stayed for a few extra minutes while others were leaving, and I could tell he wanted to say something. He finally asked, "Can I say, I'm Yuki, I'm from Tokyo, and I'm studying design?" I said, "Of course, Yuki, that's perfect." His face lit up a little. I could see the small spark of confidence begin to grow. The next week, Yuki came back. This time, when it was his turn, he said it exactly like he had practiced. "I'm Yuki, I'm from Tokyo, and I'm studying design." He said it slowly but clearly, and he smiled at the end. The reaction from the group was warm. Someone said, "Nice to meet you, Yuki." Another added, "That's cool, I like design too." That short introduction started a little conversation, and just like that, Yuki wasn't just a quiet face on the screen anymore. He was part of the group. What stood out to me was how something so small could make such a big difference. The only thing that changed was the structure of the sentence. Instead of 2 short words, Yuki, Japan, he gave us a full, clear introduction. He didn't use difficult vocabulary. He didn't try to speak fast. He just put together 3 simple ideas: his name, where he was from, and what he was studying. And because of that, people could connect with him. They could relate to him. That's what a good introduction does. It invites people in. Over the next few weeks, Yuki became more active in class. He started asking questions, giving short answers, and even making jokes. And every time he introduced himself in a new session, his words became more natural. "Hi, I'm Yuki. I'm from Tokyo. I'm a design student and I want to improve my English to talk with people from other countries." It was still simple, but it had rhythm, confidence, and purpose. He no longer sounded like someone hiding behind a screen. He sounded like someone stepping forward and saying, "Here I am. Let's talk." I asked Yuki later how he had felt during that first class. He said, "I was nervous. I thought everyone would speak better English than me. I didn't know what to say." And I think that's something so many learners experience. You join a class or you go to a new group, and suddenly, all your vocabulary disappears. Even simple sentences feel hard. Your mind is full of English words, but your mouth feels frozen. But then, slowly, you realize that no one is expecting you to be perfect. No one is waiting for a speech. People just want to know a little about you. That's all. And when you hear others doing the same thing, using short, clear sentences, you realize that you can do it too. I always encourage new students to start with a base structure they can build on, just like Yuki did. I'm name. I'm from city or country. I'm job, student, or reason for learning English. This structure is like a small bridge. You can use it anywhere, on a video call, in a classroom, at a meetup, or even in a casual online chat. It gives you a way to speak without thinking too much, and the more you use it, the easier it becomes. What made Yuki's story so powerful was the way he grew, not by memorizing difficult grammar, but by practicing something simple until it became natural. He didn't try to say everything at once. He started with a few words, then added more when he felt ready. That's how real progress happens. Step by step, sentence by sentence. I think about that often when I meet learners who are just starting out. They tell me, I don't know how to introduce myself. My English is too bad. And I tell them about Yuki. I tell them how he went from Yuki, Japan, to a full, clear introduction in just a few weeks. Not because he learned hundreds of new words, but because he practiced what he already knew. His story reminds us that speaking English is not about saying a lot. It's about saying a little, clearly and confidently. And the beauty of that is, you can start today. You don't need to be advanced. You don't need to speak fast. You just need to speak a little and listen a lot. Every time you introduce yourself, you're not just giving your name and your location. You're opening a door. You're saying, here's who I am. I want to connect. And often, that's all it takes to begin something meaningful. When we think about introducing ourselves in English, it's easy to overthink or feel unsure about what to say. Many people worry about grammar, pronunciation, or saying too much. But the truth is, a good introduction doesn't need to be long or complicated. It just needs to give the other person enough information to start a conversation. And that's exactly what I want to help you do today. Share enough about yourself so someone feels like they know you, even after just a few sentences. Let's talk about the structure of a good introduction. There are 4 key pieces that I always recommend. First, your name. That's the most basic and essential part. You might think, of course I'll say my name, but it's how you say it that matters. A clear sentence like, "Hi, I'm Carlos," or "My name is Amina," is easy to understand and feels natural. Next is where you're from. You don't have to give too much detail. Just your city or country is fine. You can say, "I'm from Madrid," or "I'm originally from Istanbul." If you live in a different place now, you can say, "I'm from Mumbai, but I live in Singapore." This tells people something about your background. It gives them a location to connect with. The third part is what you do. Are you a student? Do you work in a specific field? You can keep it short. For example, I work as a software engineer, or I'm studying biology at university. If you're not working or studying, you can say something like, "I'm currently looking for a job," or "I'm learning English full-time." These short phrases help people understand a little more about your daily life. And the fourth part is something small and personal. A light curiosity, a fun fact, or something you enjoy. It doesn't have to be exciting or unusual, just something true about you. I love hiking, I enjoy cooking, or I'm a big fan of science fiction movies. This last part is important because it gives people something they can respond to. It makes your introduction more human and memorable. Let me give you a full example. "Hi, I'm Carlos from Madrid. I work as a software engineer and I love hiking." That's a complete introduction in just one sentence. It tells us his name, where he's from, what he does, and something he enjoys. Each part adds a little detail. And now imagine someone listening to that. They could reply, "Oh, I've been to Madrid," or "I work in tech too," or "Where do you like to hike?" A simple sentence opens up so many possible replies. I've met people from all over the world who use this kind of structure, and every time it helps create better conversations. I remember Fatima from Casablanca. She joined a language exchange group I was leading, and during her first meeting, she said, "Hi, I'm Fatima. I'm from Casablanca, Morocco. I teach French, and I love painting in my free time." Her introduction was so warm and open that 3 people immediately commented, "I love painting too, and I always wanted to visit Morocco." She smiled, and I could see how this small effort changed everything for her. She was no longer just another name on the screen. She was someone people wanted to talk to. When you use this structure, name, origin, job or interest, and a curiosity, you create a little window into your life. And you don't need to use big words. You don't need perfect grammar. You just need honesty and a few clear sentences. Another example comes from Wei, a student from Shanghai. His first time in class, he said, "I'm Wei from China. I study computer science. I like coffee." That was it. It was short and clear, but it worked. Someone asked, "What kind of coffee do you like?" And they started a conversation. A few classes later, his introduction grew into, "Hi, I'm Wei. I'm from Shanghai, and I'm a computer science student. I really like learning about coffee from different countries." It was still simple, but now it had more detail and personality. Some learners ask me, "What if I don't have a job?" Or, "What if I don't know what to say?" I always tell them it's okay. You can talk about what you're learning, what you enjoy, or even what you hope to do. For example, "Hi, I'm Sophia from Athens. I'm learning English because I want to travel more. I love watching documentaries." That's a great way to share something real, even if your life is in transition. And if you're nervous, remember, you can write your introduction first. Practice it. Say it aloud a few times. Try different versions. You don't have to memorize it, but getting comfortable with the words helps reduce anxiety. Over time, it will feel more natural. Let's try another one. "Hi, I'm David. I'm from Toronto, Canada. I work in marketing and I enjoy playing the guitar." Clear, friendly, and easy to follow. Or this one. "Hello, I'm Layla from Cairo. I'm a medical student, and I love reading mystery novels." You can see that each example gives a few small pieces of information. Not too much, but just enough. I also want to mention that your introduction can change depending on the situation. In a casual class, you might keep it short. "I'm Arjun from Delhi. I'm learning English and I like movies." But in a professional setting, you might add more. "Hi, I'm Arjun. I'm from Delhi, India. I work in finance and I'm learning English to improve my international communication." Adjust your words depending on where you are and who you're speaking with, but the structure can stay the same. Think of your introduction as a small gift you give to someone else. You're helping them know who you are, and when they respond, they're giving you the same gift back. That's the start of connection. That's the heart of communication, and just to show you how flexible this is, here are a few more real examples from learners I've worked with. "I'm Lucia from Rome. I teach high school English, and I love taking photos on weekends." "I'm Ahmed from Dubai. I'm studying economics, and I'm a big fan of football." "I'm May from Taipei. I'm a graphic designer, and I enjoy learning about different cultures." Each of these introductions is simple but powerful. Each one helps build confidence and opens the door to new conversations. So when you're preparing to introduce yourself in English, remember, you don't need to impress. You just need to connect. A few clear sentences with real information. About you are more than enough. Keep it honest, keep it simple, and you'll be ready for any situation where English is the language that brings people together. When I think about the power of a good introduction, I always remember Amina's story. Amina is from Cairo, and a few months ago, she got a job offer to work at a tech company in London. It was a huge opportunity for her. She had studied computer science at university, and after working for 3 years in Egypt, she finally got the chance to move abroad and be part of an international team. Naturally, she was both excited and nervous. Starting a new job is already challenging. Starting a new job in a different country, in a language that's not your first, adds another layer of stress. Amina told me that she spent the night before her first day practicing what she would say. She wasn't worried about technical skills. She was confident in her knowledge and experience. What made her nervous was the introduction. That very first moment when everyone turns to you and expects you to speak. That moment when you have to say who you are, where you're from, and what you're doing there. She didn't want to freeze. She didn't want to sound unsure or forget her words. So she prepared a short and clear sentence, just 1 or 2 lines. She practiced in front of the mirror, repeated it slowly, and made sure she was comfortable with it. When she arrived at the office, her new manager walked her around and introduced her to the team. There were about 10 people sitting at their desks, and they all turned to her with friendly faces. Her manager smiled and said, "Everyone, this is Amina. She's joining the software development team." And then he looked at her and said, "Would you like to introduce yourself?" She took a breath, smiled, and said, "Hi, I'm Amina. I'm from Cairo. I just moved to London for this job, and I'm really excited to work with all of you." That was it. Simple, clear, honest. And the response was immediate. People smiled, some nodded, and a few said, "Welcome," and "Nice to meet you." One of her teammates, Ravi, who was originally from Mumbai, came over and said, "I also moved here for work a few years ago. Let me know if you need anything." Another teammate, Laura, from Manchester, said, "I love Cairo. I visited last year. The food was amazing." In that short moment, Amina went from being the new person in the room to being part of a conversation. She felt seen. She felt included. Later, she told me that she was surprised by how well it went. She didn't use complex words. She didn't try to sound perfect. She just spoke from the heart and used the structure she had practiced. Name, origin, reason for being there, and a bit of positive energy. That's all it took to make a good first impression. What I love about Amina's story is how relatable it is. So many of us face that kind of moment, whether it's a new job, a new class, or a new group of people. And that moment always comes with pressure. We want to be liked. We want to be understood. But the pressure often makes us freeze or say too little. That's why preparing a simple introduction in advance can help. It gives you something stable to stand on when everything around you feels new. Amina told me that after that first introduction, everything became easier. Her teammates started including her in small conversations. She was invited to join a group lunch on her second day. She started feeling more confident speaking up during meetings. And it all started with that short introduction. She also said that in Egypt, she had always been a little shy about speaking English in front of others. She was afraid of making mistakes. But after that first day in London, she realized that people weren't listening for perfection. They were listening to understand her. They wanted to know who she was, not how advanced her grammar was. That was a big shift in her mindset. She even gave me permission to share her exact words with you. She said, "I always thought I had to speak, like a native to be accepted. But now I know that people respond to energy, to confidence, and to clarity. My accent doesn't matter as much as I thought. What matters is that I speak." And I think that's such a powerful lesson. Amina's introduction worked not because it was impressive, but because it was real. And when we're learning a language, being real matters more than being perfect. People connect with people, not with grammar books. When you show who you are in a few clear sentences, people open up to you. Since then, Amina has made friends. In her office. She even joined a running group with some of her colleagues. They meet once a week in a park near the office. She told me that these small social moments have helped her English more than any textbook ever did. She learns new phrases, hears different accents, and practices without pressure. But it all started with that simple moment. "Hi, I'm Amina. I'm from Cairo. I just moved to London for this job, and I'm really excited to work with all of you." 10 seconds. That's all it took to make a positive connection. So if you're preparing for a situation like this, a new job, a class, or even an online meeting, I encourage you to prepare a short introduction like Amina did. Practice it. Get used to saying it out loud. Choose simple words, smile when you say it. And most importantly, believe that what you have to say is worth hearing. Because it is. Just like Amina, you can turn a moment of fear into a moment of connection. When I talk to learners from different parts of the world, one thing becomes very clear. Most people don't lack intelligence or motivation. They simply lack practice. Especially when it comes to introducing themselves in English. That very first step, that moment when you say your name, where you're from, and a little bit about yourself. It feels simple, but it carries a lot of pressure. And yet, it's something we can all prepare for. We don't need to wait for the perfect moment. We can practice right now, at home, and get better every single day. I want to tell you how I recommend doing it. It starts with your mindset. Think of your introduction like a key. A small, simple key that opens the door to conversation, friendship, opportunities, and connection. And just like with any key, you don't want it to be overly complicated. You want it to fit smoothly. That's why I always suggest starting with a basic version. Just a few words, your name and where you're from. For example, "Hi, I'm Sophia, I'm from Rome." Or, "Hello, I'm Amir, I live in Jakarta." That's your foundation. Once you feel comfortable with the basic version, you can begin to add more. Maybe your job, maybe your hobby. You don't have to say everything all at once. You build it gradually. It's like building a house. You start with the structure, then you decorate it later. So from "Hi, I'm Sophia, I'm from Rome," you can move to "Hi, I'm Sophia, I'm from Rome and I work as a nurse." Then later, "Hi, I'm Sophia, I'm from Rome, I work as a nurse, and I love reading mystery novels." Each time you practice, you add a small detail. One of the most powerful ways to practice is speaking in front of a mirror. I've recommended this to thousands of learners, and the results are always positive. When you speak in front of a mirror, you're not only practicing the words, you're also practicing eye contact, body language, and facial expressions. You get used to how your face moves when you speak English. You can notice if you're smiling, if you look confident, or if you seem unsure. Don't judge yourself too harshly. The mirror is not there to criticize you. It's there to help you see yourself as others would. Start with a small sentence, look into your own eyes, and say it clearly. Then repeat it. 10 times, 15 times. Repetition is what builds muscle. Memory. And yes, speaking is a kind of muscle memory. Just like learning to ride a bicycle or play an instrument, the more you repeat, the more natural it feels. Another tool that works incredibly well is recording yourself. I know it can feel strange at first, but it's such a useful way to improve. Use your phone or your computer, record your introduction, and then listen to it. Not to criticize, but to learn. Pay attention to how you sound. Do you speak too fast? Too quietly? Are there parts where you pause because you're unsure? Listening to yourself helps you notice patterns that you can improve. You can also keep the recordings and listen again later. It's a great way to track your progress over time. If you feel comfortable, you can even send your recording to a friend who speaks English or someone who is also learning. Ask for feedback, or better yet, ask them to send their own introduction too. Make it a challenge between friends. You'll feel less alone, and you'll both grow together. Some learners like to write down their introduction first. That's also a great method. Writing helps you organize your thoughts. Start by writing your basic version, then write an expanded version. You can keep the sentences short and clear. Use simple vocabulary. Remember, this is not about being poetic. It's about being understood. You can write something like, "Hi, I'm Daniel. I'm from Seoul. I work in marketing and I enjoy watching documentaries." That's already a strong introduction. Once it feels comfortable, try saying it without reading. Then practice it until you can say it naturally, even while walking around or doing something else. If you want to take it even further, you can create a few versions for different situations. One for professional meetings, one for casual social events, one for online language exchanges. For example, in a business setting, you might say, "Good morning, my name is Daniel Lee. I'm from Seoul, and I manage digital marketing campaigns." For a retail company. In a more relaxed situation, you might say, "Hey, I'm Daniel. I'm from Seoul. I work in marketing, and I'm trying to improve my English so I can travel more." Practicing these variations prepares you for real life. Some learners ask me, "Julia, how many times should I practice before I know it's good?" And my answer is always the same. Practice until you stop thinking about the words. When you can say your introduction without hesitation, without translating in your head, that's when it becomes part of you. That's when it feels natural. And that's when your confidence grows. The good news is, it doesn't take months. You can feel a difference in a few days. If you practice 5 minutes a day, just 5 minutes, you'll notice your voice becoming clearer. You'll notice your rhythm improving. You'll notice that you're less nervous when speaking to others. It's not about being perfect. It's about being ready. And let me remind you of something very important. You don't need to wait until you feel fluent to introduce yourself. The introduction is not for experts. It's for everyone. Even beginners can introduce themselves. Even beginners should introduce themselves, because each time you do, you take a step forward in your journey. So here's what I want you to try today. Choose a quiet space. Stand in front of the mirror. Look at yourself. Say your name. Say where you're from. Say one thing about what you do or what you enjoy. Repeat it several times. Then record it. Listen to it. Smile at your progress. Because the truth is, you are improving every time you try. Every single time you speak. Even if it's just to your reflection, you are building a stronger version of yourself. When I first heard about Luca's story, I smiled because it reminded me of so many learners who dream big but start with small, careful steps. Luca is originally from Milan, Italy, and like many students, he was looking for a meaningful internship abroad to gain experience and improve his English. He applied for a position at a company based in Toronto, Canada, which focused on green technologies and innovation in engineering. When he got the email inviting him for an interview in English, he felt both excited and terrified. It was his first formal interview in another language, and he knew his introduction would set the tone. Luca wasn't fluent. He was still learning. But he understood something very important. His goal wasn't to impress with complex words. His goal was to communicate clearly, calmly, and with confidence. So, he decided to focus on one thing, his introduction. He knew that if he could start strong, everything else would feel easier. For 3 days before the interview, he practiced. Not for hours without stopping, just short, focused moments. He practiced standing in front of a mirror. He practiced walking around his room. He recorded his voice and listened to it again and again. He wasn't trying to memorize a speech. He was training his mouth and his brain to work together. He wrote down his introduction, then simplified it. He went from a long paragraph to just a few sentences. He chose words that felt natural to him, not too formal, not too casual. He wanted to sound like himself. This is what he prepared. Hi, I'm Luca from Milan. I'm studying mechanical engineering and I'm passionate about sustainability. That's it. Short, simple, and true. And each word had a purpose. Let me tell you why this introduction worked so well. First, it started with his name and location, which created a clear personal connection. Then, it included his area of study, mechanical engineering, which showed that he had a relevant background for the internship. Finally, he added something personal, his passion for sustainability. That last detail made his introduction memorable. It gave the interviewer something to ask about, and that's the key. A good introduction opens the door to the next part of the conversation. When the day of the interview came, Luca felt nervous, of course, but he also felt ready. He had said these words so many times they felt natural to him now. He logged into the video call, greeted the interviewer with a smile, and when he was asked to introduce himself, he didn't hesitate. He said exactly what he had practiced. Hi, I'm Luca from Milan. I'm studying mechanical engineering, and I'm passionate about sustainability. The interviewer smiled and replied, That's great to hear. Can you tell me more about how you became interested in sustainability? And just like that, the conversation flowed. That first impression made a difference. Luca didn't speak perfect English, and he made a few grammar mistakes later in the interview. But none of that mattered. What stood out was his preparation, his clarity, and his genuine passion. The company saw someone who could grow, contribute, and communicate clearly. A week later, he got the offer. And today, he's working in Toronto, contributing to projects that help reduce environmental impact in the manufacturing sector. What I love most about Luca's story is how real and relatable it is. He didn't use big words or complicated structures. He didn't try to sound like a native speaker. He didn't try to be someone he wasn't. He just focused on saying something meaningful in a simple, confident way. And it worked. Sometimes we think we need to be perfect to succeed in English. But that's not true. We need to be clear. We need to be ourselves. And we need to prepare. Luca's preparation didn't take weeks. It took a few focused days of practicing something small. He took control of what he could control, his introduction, and used it as a strong foundation. When I talk to learners, I always remind them that your introduction is not just a sentence. It's a tool. It's the moment when people hear your voice for the first time. It's your chance to set the tone, to show who you are, and to give others a reason to keep listening. Luca did exactly that, and it made all the difference. If you're preparing for a job interview or any professional situation, take a page from Luca's book. Don't try to prepare an entire script. Focus on that first sentence, then make it yours. Write it, practice it, and say it until it feels like a natural part of you. Keep it short, keep it clear, and include something true about yourself. That's how you connect. And even if you're not applying for a job right now, the same principle applies. Every conversation starts somewhere. Whether you're joining a new class, going to an event, or meeting someone online, your introduction is your starting point. The more you practice it, the more comfortable you'll feel in any situation. Luca is still learning. His English isn't perfect, but he doesn't wait for perfection to speak. And that's what I want for you too. Use the English you have. Make your words work for you. Keep practicing. Because every time you say your introduction, you're not just repeating a sentence. You're building confidence. You're showing the world who you are. I want to talk today about something very important that often holds so many learners back when they try to speak English: perfectionism. I know this feeling well because I have seen it again and again with students from all over the world, and I want to remind you that your goal is not to be perfect. Your goal is to be understood. This is a big shift in mindset, and it makes a huge difference in how you approach your English, especially when introducing yourself. Many people believe that if their grammar is not perfect or if their pronunciation isn't flawless, they will fail to make a good impression. This belief can cause a lot of fear and anxiety. You might find yourself freezing, unable to speak, or even avoiding situations where you have to introduce yourself in English. I've heard this story from learners in London, Paris, Shanghai, and Mumbai. They want to say just the right thing, pronounce every word correctly, and use complicated sentences to impress. But guess what? That's not necessary. Imagine you are meeting someone for the first time, and they tell you, "Hi, I am Anna from Warsaw." The sentence is simple, but it is clear. You understand who she is, where she is from, and you can continue the conversation naturally. Now, if Anna said, "Hi, I am Anna from Warsaw and I like to traveling," you would still understand her perfectly, even though there is a small mistake. The key is communication, not grammar exams. I want to share a story about this. I once worked with a student named David, who is from Madrid. David was terrified of making mistakes. He thought every sentence had to be perfect before he could say it out loud. When he introduced himself, he would rehearse for hours, worried that a small mistake would ruin everything. The truth is, David was missing out on many chances to connect with people because of this fear. One day, I encouraged him to try something different. I asked him to introduce himself in a simple way, focusing on being clear instead of correct. David said, "Hi, I am David. I'm from Madrid. I work in finance." It was not perfect English. The missing word was am, but the message was clear. The people he spoke to understood him easily and responded warmly. After that, David felt more confident and started to speak more freely, making more friends and improving quickly. This story is so common. I meet people who stop themselves from speaking because they are scared of mistakes. They don't realize that mistakes are part of learning. When you try to speak, small errors will happen, and that's okay. What matters most is that the person listening can understand your message. Let's be honest, even native speakers make mistakes sometimes. If you think about your own language, you probably don't always say everything perfectly. Communication is about connection, not perfection. When you focus on being understood, your confidence grows. And confidence is the key to fluency. Another important point is how mistakes can actually help you learn faster. When you speak and someone corrects you kindly, you remember that correction better than if you just study grammar rules in a book. So don't be afraid of errors. Embrace them as stepping stones on your journey. A big part of overcoming perfectionism is to accept that your English will not be perfect right away, and that is perfectly normal. Your brain is working hard to put words together in a new way. It takes time and practice. When you allow yourself to speak without fear, you give yourself the chance to improve every day. One tip I like to share is to prepare a simple introduction and practice it enough to say it naturally, but don't try to memorize it word for word. This way, you can adapt and respond if someone asks questions. If you get a little stuck or make a mistake, don't apologize or stop. Just keep going. The person you are talking to will appreciate your effort and will want to help. Remember that. Communication is a two-way street. When you introduce yourself, the listener also wants to understand you. They want to connect with you, learn about you, and continue the conversation. So, your mistakes are not a problem for them. They are part of the process. I want you to think about a time you met someone new. Maybe you were nervous, but you focused on sharing a few simple things about yourself. How did it feel when the other person smiled and responded positively? That feeling is what you want to experience every time you introduce yourself in English. Let me also mention pronunciation, because this is another area where many learners get stuck. You don't have to sound like a native speaker to be understood. Clear pronunciation is about making your words understandable, not about having a perfect accent. You can speak slowly and clearly, and that helps a lot. If you are worried about certain sounds, practice them, but don't wait until they are perfect to start speaking. I encourage you to listen carefully to English speakers, but don't try to copy everything exactly. Focus on the rhythm and the important words in sentences. When you speak, try to use your own voice and style. This will make your introduction sound more natural and authentic. When you stop chasing perfection and start aiming for clarity, you free yourself from unnecessary pressure. You open the door to real conversations, to making friends, to professional opportunities, and to learning more every day. The most important thing is that you speak, that you connect, and that you enjoy the process. Many learners ask me how to handle moments when they don't know a word or forget a phrase during introductions. My advice is simple. Don't panic. Use simple words you know. If you don't know the word for your job, say, I work with computers, instead of I'm a software developer. If you forget how to say, I enjoy hiking, you can say, I like walking in nature. Keep it simple and keep going. Let's be honest. Everyone makes mistakes, and every mistake is a learning opportunity. You are not alone. Thousands of people around the world are learning English and feeling the same fears. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't is often that simple step of accepting imperfection and focusing on communication. So when you practice your introduction, think about being clear first, not perfect. Think about sharing who you are and inviting others to get to know you. Your words don't have to be flawless, they just have to be heard. And the more you do this, the easier it becomes. Keep practicing, keep speaking, and remember that your voice matters. Your introduction is your chance to shine by being understood, not by being perfect. You are doing great. Today I want to share a story about a wonderful young woman named Priya from Mumbai. Priya moved to Singapore for work, and one of her first challenges was attending a professional meetup. This event was a networking opportunity with people from many countries, speaking different varieties of English. Priya was nervous about introducing herself because she felt her English had a strong accent, and she worried people might not understand her. But she also knew that this was a great chance to practice and to connect with others in her new city. On the day of the meetup, Priya prepared a simple introduction. She practiced saying, Hi, I'm Priya from Mumbai. I recently moved to Singapore to work in marketing. I'm excited to meet new people and learn more about this city. She focused on speaking clearly and with confidence, even if her accent was noticeable. She reminded herself that the goal was not to sound like a native speaker, but to be understood and to show who she was. When she stood up to introduce herself, some of her fears appeared for a moment. She thought her accent might make people confused or less interested, but as she spoke, she noticed the smiles and the nods from the audience. People were listening carefully and responding warmly. Several participants later told Priya they appreciated how clear and friendly her introduction was. They said her accent did not matter at all. What mattered was that she spoke with confidence and showed genuine interest in connecting. This experience was eye-opening for Priya. She realized that many people at the meetup had accents or spoke English differently. No one expected her to be perfect. Instead, they valued her courage to speak and her openness. This helped her relax and enjoy the conversations that followed. She made new contacts and even found someone who offered to show her around the city. Priya's story is a perfect example of why focusing on clarity and confidence is so important. Many learners believe they need to lose their accent or speak exactly like native speakers to be successful. But that is simply not true. Your accent is part of your identity and culture. It can be a bridge, not a barrier. When you speak clearly and with confidence, people will listen and respond positively, regardless of your accent. I want you to think about your own experiences with accents. Maybe you have hesitated to speak English because you thought your accent was too strong or different. Priya's story shows that this fear should not stop you. The key is to speak clearly, slowly if needed, and with a smile. When you do this, you invite others to understand and appreciate you. Another important lesson from Priya is about the power of preparation. She didn't just show up and hope for the best. She took time to prepare a simple introduction that she could say comfortably. This gave her a strong starting point. As you practice your introductions, think about simple sentences you can use easily, and then add more details when you feel ready. I also want to highlight how Priya's positive attitude made a big difference. She didn't let her fears take over. Instead, she saw the meetup as an opportunity to learn and grow. This mindset can help all of us. When you focus on the chance to connect and share, rather than on possible mistakes, your English will improve naturally. Let me share something I've seen many times with learners from different cities like Paris, Seoul, and Istanbul. They worry about their accents and often keep silent in group conversations. But when they take the step to speak, even if their English is not perfect, others respond with kindness and encouragement. This is the magic of human connection. I encourage you to practice your introduction out loud, just like Priya did. Record yourself if you can, or practice in front of a mirror. Try to speak clearly and at a comfortable speed. Remember, clarity is more important than speed or accent. When you feel ready, find small opportunities to introduce yourself in English, whether online or in person. One tip that helped Priya was to smile while speaking. Smiling can change how your voice sounds and make you feel more relaxed. It also makes you appear friendly and approachable. Try this next time you practice. It really works. When you meet someone new, your introduction is the first step in building a connection. Don't worry if your English is not perfect or if you have an accent. Focus on sharing who you are and showing interest in the other person. People want to listen and connect with you. Priya's experience in Singapore shows us that confidence and clarity open doors, more than perfect grammar or accent ever will. Remember that every time you speak English, you are improving. Your accent is not a barrier. It is part of your unique story. When you focus on being clear and confident, you create space for others to understand and appreciate you. This is what makes your introduction truly successful. So, as you prepare your own introduction, think about what makes Priya's story so inspiring. It's not about sounding perfect. It's about being yourself and sharing your story with confidence. This approach will help you grow, meet new people, and feel more comfortable speaking English every day. When it comes to introducing yourself in English, one of the most important skills you can develop is the ability to adapt your introduction, depending on the context. The way you introduce yourself at a formal business meeting will be very different from how you do it at a casual gathering with new friends or during a class. Understanding these differences will help you feel more confident and make better connections in any situation. Let's start by thinking about a formal context, like a work meeting or a job interview. In these situations, your introduction needs to be clear, concise, and professional. You want to give the listener important information about who you are and what you do, but keep it relevant to the context. For example, you might say, "Hi, my name is Sarah. I'm from London and I work as a project manager in the tech industry. I'm excited to join this team and contribute to our upcoming projects." This kind of introduction tells people your name, where you are from, what your job is, and gives a positive message about your attitude. Notice how it's simple but effective. Now imagine you are at a more casual event, like a party or a social meetup. Here, you can be more relaxed and add some personal details that help people get to know you better beyond work. You might say something like, "Hello, I'm Sarah. I'm from London. I work in tech, but I love hiking and photography. I'm always looking for new trails to explore." This kind of introduction shares a bit about your hobbies and personality. It invites the listener to ask questions or find common interests. In informal settings, this approach helps you build friendships more naturally. Sometimes you might find yourself in a learning environment, like an English class or a workshop. When introducing yourself in these settings, it's useful to mention your language goals or why you are there. For example, "Hi, I'm Sarah from London. I'm here to improve my English for work and travel. I'm excited to learn with all of you." This kind of introduction shows your motivation and helps others connect with you based on shared goals. It also makes it easier for your classmates or teacher to support your learning journey. Let's also think about interviews or presentations. In these cases, you want your introduction to be polished and focused on your skills and experiences. You can include a brief overview of your background and what you bring to the role. For example, "Good morning, my name is Sarah. I'm a project manager with 5 years of experience in software development. I specialize in team leadership and agile methodologies. I'm passionate about delivering quality results and fostering collaboration." This introduction is more formal, includes professional vocabulary, and shows confidence in your abilities. But what if you're not sure how formal or casual the situation will be? In those cases, it's best to prepare a core introduction, a version of your introduction that works well in most settings, and then add or remove details depending on the moment. For example, your core introduction could be, "Hi, I'm Sarah from London. I work in technology." From there, you can add something like, "In my free time, I enjoy hiking," if the situation is informal, or "I'm excited to contribute to this project," if it's a professional meeting. Adapting your introduction also means paying attention to the people you are speaking to. If you're meeting a group from different countries, keeping your introduction clear and simple is important. Avoid slang or very complex words until you feel more comfortable. If you're talking to people who know your field, you can use more technical language. Always try to match your introduction to the listener's level and interests. This shows respect and makes communication smoother. Another tip is to listen carefully to how others introduce themselves in the same situation. Notice what information they share, the words they use, and the tone they take. This will give you clues about what is appropriate and how you can fit in. For example, at a formal conference in Paris, people might focus mostly on their roles and experience. At a casual meetup in Seoul, people may share their hobbies and where they live. Adapting in this way makes your introduction feel natural and helps you connect better. Sometimes the situation may require a very short introduction, like when you only have a few seconds. This might happen during a quick networking event or when meeting someone new in a crowded room. In these cases, you can use a mini introduction like, "Hi, I'm Sarah from London working in tech." It's short but gives enough information to start a conversation later. When you have more time, such as in an interview or a small group, you can give a longer introduction with more details about your background, interests, and goals. For example, "Hello, I'm Sarah. I grew up in London and have been working in the technology sector for over 5 years. I specialize in managing software projects and leading teams. Outside of work, I love hiking and photography, which help me relax and stay creative." This longer version helps people get to know you better and remember you. Adapting your introduction also means being flexible and ready to respond if someone asks questions after you speak. If you say you like hiking, be ready to talk a little about your favorite places or recent trips. If you mention your job, be prepared to explain what you do in simple terms. This kind of natural conversation shows that you are comfortable speaking English and interested in connecting with others. If you are in an online setting, like a virtual meeting or class, adapting your introduction is just as important. You might want to speak a little slower and use clear pronunciation so everyone can understand you well. Sometimes in online groups, people write their introductions in the chat. Keep it short and simple, for example. "Hi, I'm Sarah from London. I work in technology and I'm learning English to improve my career." This way, even if your spoken English is still developing, people can get to know you. I encourage you to prepare different versions of your introduction for different situations. Practice saying them out loud so you feel comfortable and confident no matter where you are. Remember, the goal is to make a connection and share a bit about yourself in a way that fits the moment. The more you practice adapting your introduction, the easier it will become. Think about your own life and the places where you need to introduce yourself in English. Maybe it's a new job, a class, or a social event. What kind of introduction fits best there? Try writing it down and practicing it. Then, think about how you could change it for other situations. This flexibility will help you feel ready for anything. Remember, there is no single, perfect way to introduce yourself in English. The best introduction is the one that feels natural to you and works well in the moment. By adapting your introduction to different contexts, you show that you are a confident and thoughtful speaker. This skill will open many doors and help you build strong relationships in your English-speaking life. When I think about the power of a good introduction, I always remember David's story. David is from Cape Town, South Africa, and he went to college in New York City. Imagine arriving in a huge new city with people from all over the world, and on your very first day, your professor asks the entire class to introduce themselves. That moment can be nerve-wracking, but also full of opportunity. David faced this challenge with courage and simplicity, and his introduction opened many doors for him. David stood up and said clearly, "Hi, I'm David from Cape Town, South Africa. I'm starting my major in political science, and I hope to work in international relations someday." Right away, that simple introduction gave his classmates a picture of who he was. They learned where he came from, what he was studying, and what his dreams were. Even though his English was not perfect, the clarity and honesty in his words made a strong impression. What I love about David's story is how a well-prepared introduction helped him connect with people he had never met before. After class, during the break, several students came up to him and started conversations. Some were curious about South Africa and wanted to learn more about his hometown. Others shared that they also studied political science or were interested in international relations. That brief moment of self-introduction created bonds that lasted throughout the semester and beyond. David told me later that before the first day of class, he felt nervous. He practiced his introduction several times, making sure he could say it clearly without rushing or stumbling. He didn't try to use complicated language or long sentences. Instead, he focused on sharing basics but important information: his name, where he was from, his field of study, and his aspirations. This approach made him feel more confident, and it helped others understand him easily. His story reminds me that when you are in a new environment, especially one as diverse and fast-paced as a college in New York, a simple and honest introduction can be your best tool. It gives people a chance to know you, and it invites them to ask questions or find common ground. This is how friendships start and networks grow. David's experience also shows that you don't have to be perfect in English to make a great first impression. Being clear and genuine is what really counts. Another interesting part of David's story is how he used his introduction to show not only who he was, but also who he wanted to become. Saying he hoped to work in international relations gave his classmates an idea about his goals and interests. This can be very helpful in new social settings because it encourages people to support you or connect you with others who share your ambitions. It's like planting seeds for future opportunities. When I work with learners who feel nervous about introducing themselves, I often share David's example. It shows that you don't need to say a lot or use difficult words. What matters is that you prepare a short introduction that feels natural, that includes a few key pieces of information, and that expresses your personality and goals. Practicing it ahead of time can reduce anxiety and make you ready for the moment when the spotlight is on you. If you think about your own introduction, ask yourself, what are the most important things you want people to know about you? Maybe it's your city or country, your job or study area, and one or two interests or goals. Write those down and practice saying them out loud. Imagine yourself in a classroom, a meeting, or any situation where you will meet new people. How would you introduce yourself? Can you say it in a clear, simple way? David's story also shows how the right introduction can lead to meaningful conversations. When people hear about your hometown or your ambitions, they often want to learn more or share their own experiences. This is how connections form naturally, even if your English is not perfect. Remember, people appreciate honesty and openness, more than flawless grammar or accent. It's also helpful to notice that David's introduction was structured logically. He started with his name and place of origin, which is a common and easy way to begin. Then he mentioned what he was studying, which gave context and showed he was serious about his education. Finally, he shared his future goal, which made the introduction personal and memorable. You can follow this pattern to create your own introduction for any new situation. When you arrive in a new environment, like a college, a new job, or a social group, your introduction is your first chance to show who you are. It sets the tone for how others will see you and how comfortable you feel. David's experience teaches us that being prepared and honest can make a big difference. It helps you overcome fear and turns a simple moment into the start of something great. Even if English is not your first language, don't let that stop you from speaking up and sharing your story. Remember David from Cape Town standing in front of his new class in New York. His introduction was simple, clear, and sincere, and it opened the door to new friendships and opportunities. You can do the same by preparing your introduction and practicing it with confidence. Think about where you might use your introduction next. Maybe you will meet new classmates, coworkers, or friends. Imagine how you want to be remembered and what message you want to give. Then try creating your own version inspired by David's story. A brief, clear, and honest introduction that tells people who you are and what matters to you. This is a great way to start building connections in English and feeling more confident. in any new situation. I want to take a moment to encourage you as we wrap up this conversation about introducing yourself in English. I know that speaking about yourself in another language can feel like a big step, sometimes even scary, but I want you to remember that this step is actually a huge part of gaining fluency and confidence. When you practice introducing yourself, you are not only learning words and sentences, you are building bridges to new people, new opportunities, and new experiences. It's an act of courage and growth. Speaking about yourself clearly in English does not require perfection. What matters most is your willingness to try, to share a bit about who you are, and to keep practicing. Every time you say your name, where you are from, what you do, or what you enjoy, you are strengthening your skills. You are becoming more comfortable with the language and more confident in your voice. The key is repetition and the bravery to speak, even if you feel nervous or unsure. I want to invite you right now to think about how you would introduce yourself today in English. Take a moment to imagine what you would say if you met someone new, whether it's at work, school, or a social event. What details would you include? Maybe your name, your city or country, your job or studies, and something you enjoy. It doesn't have to be long or complicated, just honest and simple. How does it sound in your mind? Now, I want you to imagine how you would like to introduce yourself a month from now. Imagine that with daily practice, you have learned new words, found your rhythm, and your confidence has grown. You speak more naturally, and you feel proud to share a little about yourself in English. This kind of progress is possible, and it starts with small, consistent steps like practicing your introduction regularly. Here's a gentle suggestion for your next step. Take some time to practice your introduction out loud. You can do this in front of a mirror, record yourself on your phone, or even practice with a friend or family member. Remember to keep it simple and clear. You can start with a basic version and then add a little more information as you get more comfortable. This exercise helps your mouth and brain get used to the sounds and structure of English, and it prepares you for real conversations. If you want to keep improving your English, I encourage you to listen to more episodes of the English Talk community. Each episode brings stories, tips, and encouragement to help you grow. By staying curious and practicing regularly, you will find yourself speaking English more easily and naturally. Remember, learning a language is a journey, and every small step counts. You have the ability to share your story and connect with others through English. It's a powerful skill that opens doors and builds relationships around the world. I am proud of you for taking this step with me today. Keep practicing, keep believing in yourself, and keep speaking your truth in English. Your voice matters, and the more you use it, the stronger it will become.